I'll be covering that much more in depth when we get to the maintenance portion of the presentation with the new jobs memo and the changes that we made. Those 1,500 jobs are going to come back mostly in smaller offices that are outside the major installations. As you discover when I get to our part of it, the stations and branches of all the major installations are all going to come back anyways, over and above this. So that's 1,500. What they did was look at the offices that are currently contracted out under the existing provisions that would provide a duty assignment, part-time regular, full-time regular, between 4 and 8 hours. He said, we've identified 1,500 post offices, and that's what that number represents.
Thanks, Steve. This is our attempt to stop the bleeding. Our union hit its high water mark, I believe in 98 or 99, close to 300,000 members. Close to 300,000 members. In the last 9 years, we have lost close to half our membership. You think we would have got work back like this from subcontractors if we'd had to go to an interest arbitrator? Not in a million years. We needed this language. We had to concentrate. This bad, dire straits that the Postal Service is in was good for us in a way. When you're in bad circumstances, it's kind of liberating. You got nothing to lose. So we were in a position where the Postal Service needed a contract, we needed a contract. We both could have went to arbitration and they would have got a little bit of what they wanted. We might have got I don't know if we would have done much better in wages than we did anyway. But we were able to bring some work back, stop the bleeding, and actually start growing our union. We're still probably going to go down a little bit, but hopefully instead of going down in this direction, we can level it off and then hopefully start gaining some membership and give ourselves a chance to build for the future. If we had continued on the way we were going, we wouldn't have had a union in 10 years. Based on the last 10 years, you do the math. In this contract, we created some new positions. We've got a lead clerk position both in mail processing and in retail. This is the position that we're going to use to take back work that has currently that had been taken from us by supervisors. This is the work for the second supervisor out in the stations and branches. This is the work that the supervisors that you have in the mail processing, you never see them out on the floor. They're in there doing their paperwork all night long. This is the work that we're taking back. 204Bs in the clerk craft are severely eliminated and reduced, and Rob will report to you on that later. PMRs eliminated in all post offices level 15 and above. This is huge language. This is huge. Most of our level 15s anymore, we don't even have bargaining unit people in there. They moved the PTS out, replaced them with PMRs. We've got language now that puts a cap, and we'll talk about it in more detail in a minute. It puts a cap on the amount of work that they can do at 25 hours in these smallest of offices. But it also eliminates the PMRs, which means they're going to have to go back and bring back bargaining unit people. And they'll either be career people, or they'll be the new PSE people, which means they will count against the district caps. Either way, it's a win-win for us. And we don't even have, in most of these 15s, we don't even have bargaining unit people anymore, and now that'll be guaranteed. POA time is completely eliminated. If you work in a small office and you understand how big that is, these are hours that in the smallest of post offices, when the postmaster has been absent, the clerk is put in charge, and it's still like being almost like a 204B. Post office assistants, they pay them 2 levels lower than the postmaster made, but importantly, the union couldn't use those hours for maximization purposes. Now that will be stopped. We can use those hours, and it'll be huge for the offices, the clerks who work in the smallest, our most vulnerable members in the small post offices. We have mandatory overtime protection. we have something called a non-traditional full-time duty assignment. We'll talk about it later, but where the Postal Service takes advantage of this, all clerks in the functional areas, function 4 or function 1, where they're using them, nobody can be forced to work overtime unless they sign the overtime desire list. Motor vehicle craft also. So that's a big thing. And in the clerk craft, finally the last vestige of bid blocking has been eliminated, so that if you bid on a job and the senior bidder for any reason fails to qualify, the next senior bidder is placed into training for every job in the clerk craft. None of this falling to the currently qualified or any of that anymore. Everybody gets an opportunity to bid. So big changes. We also have a workforce benefit employment fund, $270 million. The Postal Service has agreed to put into this fund over the life of the contract. This is money we're going to be using to pay health insurance benefits for the new employees, the non-career employees we're calling postal support employees. We finally settled on a term. You've heard them called NCAs and CPEs and RBIs and God knows what. We've tried everything, but we finally agreed to CP, PSC, Postal Support. All right, I'll get it by the 10th time I do this presentation, I'll have it down, hopefully. So that's what that fund is for. We can also use it if we, some of those resources to help return work, but that's if we choose to do it. Next slide. 16B. This is the, those of you who have been toiling in the small office fields, you're very familiar with the 16B issue, and it goes back to the Garrett Award back in the 70s, and we were in typically a guerrilla warfare situation in these smallest of the small post offices, where the union had to go in there and prove what the history had been in this office, and they were limited to the amount of work that they could do. But also the Postal Service, if you read that Garrett Award closely, just because you had the history established did not mean that because of drops in mail volume or for other good faith reasons that history could not change. And so we finally have put that issue to rest. Now, we had a lot of locals who had taken care of business and had postmasters and supervisors limited somewhat in these small offices, but for every office that we've been able to go out and arbitrate in the field and win, there are at least 15 or 20 where they were just running rampant, working 30, 40 hours a week, 7 days a week, and that sort of thing. So this is a settlement that I think is good for the union. The union does not have the resources, the locals don't have the resources to go out into each one of these post offices, and we've got language now that's enforceable, and it's across the board, and everybody knows where it is, and it'll be what it is. In the past, the point of demarcation for the offices where postmasters were allowed to work, if it's in their job description, was 100 employees. You can forget about that now. We're going by office level. And under the old contract, the postmaster in a level 20 office could perform bar unit work if it's in their job description. They cannot under the new contract. So any office that's a level 20, if the postmaster has been performing bar unit work, they got to stop. All level 20s. Level 18s, they can perform up to 15 hours a week. We thought about a 3-hour-a-day cap, but we decided it would be better for a week. For example, the clerk calls in sick or something on Monday, the postmaster has to work 8 hours. They've used up over half of their 15-hour allotment on the first day. So I think a weekly allotment was better for us than, and thanks Bob Johnson for bringing that to my attention. Bob is really helpful on that, as well as Pete Karate, who's in here. It was mentioned earlier. Pete worked long and hard hours with us on these hours, so thanks to you both. Level 15 and 16s, it's 25 hours a week, but you got to remember here again that we've eliminated PMRs, so that is huge for these offices. We also, a lot of the work that's been done in these small offices has been done by dual appointed RCRs who have dual appointments as casuals. Since we don't have casuals anymore, you can't have dual appointed. So that's a lot of work that's going to be coming back in the small offices. And offices that are downgraded in size. If you're 18 back as of November 21st, and you're downgraded to a 15, your work rules, the amount of work you can do, are going to remain at 18 or whatever it was. We got the converse of that also on our side. If you grow from an 18 to a 20, then the postmaster has to stop working. So we got both sides of that sword. Here are the current numbers, and you can see that they don't add up. So that this proves that we don't have clerks in all these post offices. Next slide. There's also language in the settlement that the postmaster must document their work hours, POAs eliminated. Let's click on the settlement if you wouldn't bring it up, Tom. Here's a copy of it. The parties agree that this grievance, the national grievance on this, that had been held in abeyance will be resolved by this, and any grievances that are outstanding will be resolved in accordance with the terms of this agreement. And here's where you get in the level 18s, the 15 hours, no PMR usage, 16s and 15s. Scroll on down to the bottom. In the event, there are 130 level 18s where there are 2 supervisors. This language here says in the event there's a second supervisor in any of these offices, they both got bargaining unit work on their job description, but only one of them can perform work if you've got a small office with 2 supervisors. This was big right here for split shifts. And this again, Bob Johnson was there and deserves a lot of credit for this getting put in. Bargaining unit work performed by postmasters or supervisors should be consecutive hours to the extent practicable. Those of you that have done Article 826